Well, I've seen Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Um, well, I guess the positives are it is by comparison better than the first part, but it has a lot of the same problems in it. It's way too long, unnecessarily so, and of course, the constant slow motion stuff on top of that, a lot of which was unnecessary. There's like maybe one or two fights where, but then it's like after you see so much slow motion, it's like enough already. Even that doesn't look cool anymore. You know, but it's like the first half of it is you could just chop all that down, if any of it, uh, and it's just and the basic incidental music is all right, and for the action and stuff, although it's a bit high, heavy on the type of stuff you heard in Justice League and Batman versus Superman. But then there's these songs. They're just annoying. They go, and it's supposed to give you more insight into the culture of the farm planet, and I mean, it's you already saw that in the first part, and they do a little more of that, and then they got to give their speeches and stuff, and then they have this scene where they have a round table talk about their individual backstories, which was mentioned in the previous one as well. It was really unnecessary to do all that, and it just drags on and on. Even what's his name, General Titus, has to sing a song. It's like, oh my god, this is some sort of musical. and so that's the thing. It's just it drags on. It's not all that compelling. The characters aren't that developed to the point that there's anything to draw you in with them. And so I don't know. They're just there, and then of course the big battle's coming. So in comparison between the two, again, it is better in the sense that the final battle, which the first part ends on a big fight and all that, but that one was so stupid, and just the means by which the bad guys had them dead to rights, and then just all of a sudden they're able to switch out of the traps and fight them off because I don't know. The Imperium's army is just absolutely incompetent, beyond bad aim. Stormtroopers are much better at shooting than they are. But I guess that's in keeping since this was supposed to have been a Star Wars story. But anyway, but that's and just overall, just so much stupid about it. In this one, it's much better in that. Within its own context, there's credible and plausible scenes here, and especially how they get the better of the Empire, I'll call them, the bad guys, and stuff like that. And although at the outset, I don't recall it being mentioned about the regulations concerning commanders of the ship, and that became somewhat. I was going to say pivotal to the plot, but not really, because it ultimately doesn't do. I mean, it's kind of odd about they're setting a trap for them, and the Empire figures out, oh, there's a trap waiting for us, and then walks right into it. And I don't know. I mean, what was the deal? How were you going to do this or that? And ultimately, they come up with this plan to prevent the bad guys from just, frying them all. And then they end up just deciding to fry them all anyway because it's like, oh, we just want Cora, and that's it. We don't really care about the planet anymore. So then why would you just go get her? Which he tries to do. He goes down and he talks to her and all that sort of stuff, but I just storm in, abduct her, and you're good. don't know. So you have the big fight and stuff, and finally the robot gets some fighting scenes. And I guess the robot is just too expensive. I don't know. It's just not utilized in this whole thing. This long, drawn-out thing, which apparently, of course, there's Snyder cuts of these two as well, which are much longer. And I'm like, I don't know. Because Justice League was great. And that one, even though it was really long, that I liked. But this, no. But the robot, of course, they established early on that the robots, there was a bunch of them, and they were basically to defend the royal family. And since the royal family were slaughtered, the robot has no purpose, and so is quite harmless, and they just use him as labor or whatnot. And then when the girl in the forum was threatened, it triggered something within the robot to reignite his warrior self. I always thought that was a missed opportunity where the plot could have revolved more around if Cora was actually a member of the royal family and was in hiding after her family had been massacred and all that sort of stuff. And then it turns out either her bloodline or she knows the code or whatever. She can activate this robot and he just slaughters the whole army because he's that powerful and can do it, That might have got to be a good take in that she can control this, monster robot type thing, and they can begin from there assembling their army because, you've killed these soldiers that were deployed there, and then so they're going to come back to, put the hammer down on you. And that could still be a beginning of the plot and all that sort of thing. But anyway, it didn't happen, and I guess, again, the robot is just so barely there, and there's really nothing done with it, that it's just, they've been better off not having him there at all, basically, because what's the point of showing this? And that's a lot of things about some of these characters, is they're not really going anywhere. There was this big thing about the guy who, and they had told his backstory in there too, and they retell it in this one. The one who rode the big bird and all that stuff. And then he runs around chopping the soldiers up with an axe. Finally, well into the battle, he grabs a rifle and starts shooting. It's like, yeah, that works better. But anyway, the big thing is Cora and her boyfriend. They get to the starship, and they're going to destroy it at its core, and ultimately they do. I'm not going to spoil every little detail about it. They're going to win. And then there's a tragic part, a sacrifice in this, and all that sort of thing. But ultimately, between the two, it's better primarily because of the battle. Had you tightened this up, it would have been even better. But the problem is it's so flawed to begin with. Even that might not have gone over as well, considering how bad the first part was, and just unnecessarily long. I don't understand this at all as to why it's so dragged out. It doesn't make any sense as to why to do that, because it just adds more to the realization that you don't really have a story here, and certainly nothing of depth. So it's just unfortunate. As much as I really was disappointed in Army of the Dead, at least it's to the point of what it is. I mean, they have a massive plot hole in it, but it's a bit more concise and tightened up compared to this. And oddly enough, it looks better. The technical details of Army of the Dead is absolutely incredible, especially when you look at the behind the scenes and how it was shot and everything. This, and you would think this one, because one of the things about Zack Snyder's movies, even the ones I don't particularly care for, like Sucker Punch, up until these two projects for Netflix he's done, I always thought Sucker Punch was the worst film he did. And yet it's glorious to look at, not just for the pretty girls. It's just a visual feast and an achievement on that. Story-wise, not so much. So it's like Zack Snyder films always looked good. Same thing for his DC movies. They look cool. It's the flaws are in the plot and story and character development here and there and that sort of thing. But even those, it was a lot more work and bright spots in those, which, you know, I enjoy those films even though I recognize their flaws. Here, there's just nothing for me. I don't know what the deal is per se, or he just doesn't listen to anyone else anymore because he got swellhead-itis after the release the Snyder Cut deal, and maybe that's it. I just don't know. But this was bad, and I don't like that because I wanted it to be good. I wanted to see, you know, oh, it's Snyder unshackled and all this sort of thing. Well, sometimes some people have to be told no at certain points. Yeah, he got wronged by Warner Brothers here and there on that, and in a particularly bad way at the outset of it. But it's sad to see it come to this. You know, I had high hopes for it and whatnot, but to see this rather lackluster presentation of this, and I don't get it, because there's very little story here, very little development, and ultimately no charm. It's a lot of cobbled together things from other films, which can work. It's, you know, there's plenty, you know, borrowing from Magnificent Seven or something like that. And then there's, of course, Star Wars was the original point of it. And then elements of like Dune and this sort of thing as far as the decorative aspects of it overall. But it's also empty. It's just, hey, I'm going to do the space movie to do a space movie. And that's kind of where it is. And that's unfortunate. But anyway, should you be curious to see how Rebel Moon so far, because apparently the idea was to go on and on and on. We'll see how that works out. But it's currently on Netflix, so you can check out Scargiver Part 2 of Rebel Moon. Although that was interesting too, because when the first part came out, you know, it was right on the front page of Netflix. You know, when you go into it. Here, I had to look for it. You know, and you go into Rebel Moon 1, and then it's listed as Part 2 and you can click that and watch it. I thought that was rather odd, as it's a brand new film on there. So maybe I've already decided to just move on from this. I don't know. He is talking about DC again a lot, apparently, lately. But, yeah, who knows. But anyway, again, a bit of a letdown for me. But I don't know. Maybe you liked it. I'll agree it is better than Part 1, sorry. But that's not saying a whole lot, but nevertheless, it's on Netflix for you to check out, should you feel so inclined.